Welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by HAYVN, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello and welcome to another HAYVN Hubcast. I'm Nancy Sheed, your host, and today we are talking with Mary Thornton. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
Mary is a board-certified New York and Connecticut licensed physician's assistant, right? Commonly known as a PA. We're here today talking to you, Mary, about your role as the founder of Element Medical Aesthetics, right? That's your new business, new-ish, right? Launched in 2020.
Yes, I launched in March of 2022. So we're coming up on 2 years.
Awesome. Congratulations. But before we dive into sort of what you're doing right this minute, I always kind of like to go back and say, so Mary, when you were, dreaming about what you wanted to do when you were growing up or when you were in college or school, thinking about what you were studying, was it owning a medical spa?
No, it was not. In fact, I didn't even know what a physician assistant was. I was working in financial services. I didn't get it right the first time, but I think all of my previous training was part of the journey that got me to where I am now. But yeah, I was a finance major. I worked in financial services. I was at Lehman. And I can remember when Lehman went bankrupt, one of my friends who's a physician, I was saying, I wish I had gone to med school, but I don't want to, do all the schooling right now. I was just finishing up my MBA and didn't want to go to school for 12 years. And she said, well, what about becoming a PA? And I said, a personal assistant? And she said, no, a physician. So I didn't even, this was 2008. I didn't even know what a PA was. And then I started researching it. I thought, this looks pretty cool. And I started volunteering in the ER at Beth Israel to see if it was something I would maybe want to do. And then I went back and got my prerequisites, my biochem, all that stuff. And I applied to PA school and started at Cornell in 2012. And while I was in PA school, I had a derm rotation that I absolutely loved. And so after I graduated, I started working in dermatology, medical and aesthetic. And I worked for other people for, pretty much the past decade, and then decided I wanted to combine my business background and my medical background. And I opened my own med spa in March of 22. Yeah.
Congratulations. Okay, I'm taking notes right now because I want to go back and unpack a lot of this because some of the language you're using is totally normal vernacular for you, but not necessarily for people who haven't had the experience of a med spa or understanding the difference. When you mentioned dermatology, say it again, there's medical and aesthetic, right? Is that how it's still? Yeah. Okay. And when we were speaking earlier in the olden days, but there was medical, we would say beauty treatments or aesthetics, right? And now that world is totally kind of combined in where you're sitting right now. And there's either a Venn diagram or a true kind of overlap of how they think about it. Can you kind of share what that looks like now as opposed to, there's one and there's the other? What does that look like when somebody comes into a medical spa, or how do they know? Are they coming in for a medical treatment? Are they coming in for something aesthetic? Is there still that line of demarcation?
So yes, there is a line of demarcation. There are treatments that can be performed by estheticians or beauticians, and then there are more medical-based treatments in the aesthetics field that need to be performed by a nurse or a physician assistant or a physician. Those are things that tend to be a little bit more invasive or that involve dosing of medications, like, for instance, Botox, right? So you need to have an understanding of the facial anatomy, and you need to be able to inject a medication, various things like that. That's where the medical part comes into play. And there's a lot of med spas popping up. The industry is exponentially growing. I think what separates us out at Element, I do have the background in medical dermatology, which is really important because we do want to be able to identify potentially dangerous skin conditions. You don't
Hmm.
want to laser something off that's, like potentially a melanoma. You would want to be able to identify that and refer the patient for biopsy. So that's just one example. Also, we see a lot of sun damage. And so it's really important to know how to give the patients the best treatment. And I think with a lot of med spas popping up, sometimes that link can be missing. So it is really important to, vet your provider and the place that you're going and make sure that they do have a good understanding of facial anatomy, of the skin, of all those things. Yes.
Mm. And I love that you were also explaining in terms of being a physician's assistant. Your physical office is here in Connecticut, and are there different kind of ways of operating in terms of are there different kind of ways of medical spas, as you were just saying? Like, how do you know, or how do you, if you're doing your research, what are the things you want to understand when you're maybe thinking about going to a medical spa?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does vary from state to state. Physician assistants are, licensed in their states, and there are different rules from state to state. So in Connecticut, I can be the owner of my med spa. I do have a supervising physician, but I can be the outright owner. Whereas in New York, it's a little bit different. I would have to have a third party, a management service organization. So yes, there are different legal nuances from state to state.
Cool. And Mary, we were talking about, again, the thinking about this as opposed to this is a nice to have versus this is something that's required, or maintenance, or I'm fixing something, right? As people are approaching it or thinking about it, how is it different? Obviously the technology, obviously there are tons. I mean, we're not even gonna go down that path, but different treatments or different plans or different things to consider depending on what you're gonna do. How do you say to people, like, here's the best way to get started, or here are some foundational things that you need to know? Like, what are the ways people kind of would either get started, or you like for them to know about before they even come in and have a chat with you, or maybe questions they ask themselves?
Yes. So, one of the things that I really like for patients to understand is that it is a journey. It's not going to be, we're going to do this one treatment and you're done. So, we continue to age, or at least we hope to. And so we need to continue to do things. So, if you do a treatment in the office, it's important that you also are doing things at home to protect your skin. The most important thing probably being wearing sunscreen, but also understanding that there will be little treatments, little tweaks that we do in the office on an ongoing basis. And I do think it is always easier to be preventative as opposed to corrective. So I encourage people to come if they think that they want to do something, come now, because if you wait for something to be an issue, it is going to take a little bit more time and money and potentially more invasive procedures than starting now and being
Mm,
more preventative. That would be probably my biggest piece of advice. But, it's never too late. There's always something that we can do to improve the quality of the skin. And I do like to emphasize that, I'm very much into like body acceptance, and I never want somebody to feel pushed or compelled to do something. If they want to do something because it makes them feel better and it makes them feel more confident, I'm all for it. And everyone draws that line at different places. So for some people, they might say, well, I would dye my hair, but I would never get Botox. And someone else might say, well, I would get Botox, but I would never get plastic surgery, right? So everyone has those different lines. My job is not to draw those lines for people. It's just to support them. If they want to do something that I can help them with, I'm here for it. And just that they are doing it because they want to do it, not because somebody told them to do it or because they feel pressured by society. So I think that's really important to mention too.
that's huge. And it is funny how different people, there is not one line of like, you've crossed this line and now you're going into the world of whatever. That I appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to ask the question that I'm assuming you get, and if you don't, I'll throw it under you. But what do you say to people who say, how do you know what's going to happen when you inject chemicals into my skin? Like, Botox is no longer new. These procedures are no longer new. I'm sure you've got tons of studies. How do you talk somebody through understanding this and what you know and they expect to happen?
So, yeah, that's a great question. Some of the things that we're injecting, say like filler hyaluronic acid, is something that's naturally in our bodies. But something like Botox, I mean, at high levels, it's lethal.
It's lethal and can paralyze. It's okay. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. So, yeah, Botox, as you said, it's been around for decades. It has tons of medical indications. It's been, just so extensively studied and has such a good safety profile. It's injected into the muscle. There's very little systemic absorption. So I would think you're probably getting more bad chemicals if you eat fast food than if you get Botox. That's just my
Exactly. I was like,
personal opinion.
I'm sure she's got a great stat of like, if you drink 3 cups of coffee, a day, that's probably more chemicals than, a maintenance Botox.
Exactly. But I do have people that aren't comfortable with it. And I'm like, okay, that's not the treatment for you. And we have other things that we can do. We have lasers, we have energy devices like radio frequency microneedling. So there's still things that we can do that are chemical free.
Mm,
Some people just don't like the idea of injectables, and that's okay. It's, again, I'm not here to convince people to do it. If they want to do it, I'm here and I have it and I do it myself. But I also have other things in my toolbox for people that aren't comfortable with that.
right. So I love that I love getting around to that. So depending on what your goal is, depending on what your comfort level is, depending on how you feel about it. And also, as you said, it's not a quick fix. So understanding what each procedure or protocol is involved from a standpoint of, commitment or resources is really helpful. Mary, how do you, in terms of typically doctors don't have to advertise, right? How is it different in this day and age in terms of being a medical spa? Is it different or is it still sort of a hush hush, like I'll refer you, I'll tell you my doctor, but nobody can talk about it? Or as you said, they're proliferating. I feel like you see them. How do you get the word out and also distinguish yourself from, I hate to say legit and not legit?
Yeah. So I think that the stigma is definitely going away with aesthetic treatments. So I'm 41. I do tend to see this divide where people who are my age and older are a little bit shyer maybe about admitting what procedures they've done, but the younger generation, like people who are coming in and doing this as maintenance, they're almost treating it like, a blowout or something. So they're open to talking about it, to posting selfies, to having
Mm,
themselves like filmed and posting it on Instagram. So I think that the stigma is starting to go away, and that's really helpful for my business because that allows word of mouth to occur, which is the best form of advertising.
mhm,
But I've also, I'm really, really active in the community. So because I don't live in New Canaan, I live in Katona, it was really important to me to get to know people in the community. So I've been really active joining things like the Young Women's League. I'm a member at HAYVN. I'm a member of a women's networking group of Fairfield that meets at New Canaan Library. I oftentimes will auction items off for like charity events and go to the events myself. So I
mm,
really just try to be an active member of the community. That's been one of the best sources of referrals for me.
mm,
And to answer your other question about how I separate myself, so I think, again, having the background in medical dermatology, I think that makes people feel comfortable in coming to me, but also just seeing their friends' results and saying like, oh, you look really great. Like, are you doing something differently? And just that word of mouth, that's really going to credential someone almost more than anything else.
mm.
The number of impressions that people need before they pull the trigger and make an appointment is, I forget what the number is. It's something like 16 impressions or
Yeah.
something like that. So I think that having that person that has had a treatment with me and can vouch for me is one of the most valuable tools.
That's huge. You touched upon your experience with the PA background and the sort of medical side as well. And we've talked about your background in finance. I feel like that also brings forward with you some maybe gravitas that might not come from somebody who, and this sounds terrible, who, comes from, let's just say, the beauty treatment world, right? So how have those two fed into your deciding, like we said, launching a business mostly on your own and managing a team and their finances and everything else? How have all those skill sets played in to sort of give you the oomph, like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to launch my own business?
Right. So I think if I hadn't had the background, like, when I worked in financial services, I wasn't really doing anything entrepreneurial, but it did allow me to get an understanding of just being at a corporation, being at like having systems in place, having review processes in place, and then getting my MBA where I did get to do some more entrepreneurial types of work and classes. That definitely, the combination of that made me more prepared. With that said, owning a business has really taught me my own limitations.
Mm,
I've realized things that I'm good at and things that I'm not good at, and things that I enjoy and things that I don't enjoy. I think like certain tasks like hiring, that's really difficult. That's been hard. And I've realized that I don't necessarily like being a manager. I love doing my craft. I love seeing the patients. And so at some point, I do need to let go of the reins a little bit and get more help in that capacity, I would say. Yeah.
mm, yeah. You're like, I can do everything. I'm a jack of all trades. You're like, no, 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 no.
Right,
That's not
right. And
it.
I have two little ones. So, like I want to be able to spend time with them too, 3 and 6 year olds. So I think that one of my limitations is just that, it's like this company is my other baby, and it can be scary to let go, but at
Mm,
some point it's just not sustainable to keep doing as much as I'm doing. So, and I have a great team. I have really great people working with me. So I need to just like sort of, relinquish some of that tight, let go of the reins a little bit.
easier said than done, but I'm glad to hear that you are not carrying it all on your own and you have an amazing team. That kind of circles us back also to, as you said, how you're being found, how you're, sort of marketing and promoting your business, as well as the networking, as well as support, which I'm going to sort of say circles us back to HAYVN. I'd love to hear a little bit about how either HAYVN found you or how you found HAYVN, or just sort of what a role HAYVN's played in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So when I first opened, I had an opening party, a launch party, and someone named Joanna, a Performance Optimal, had come in, and she was a member at HAYVN and said, "Hey, you should go to HAYVN and check that out." So I did, and I thought it was great. I went to one of the member breakfasts and I joined. That was April of 22, and I would mostly go to the member breakfast. I went to some of the health and wellness breakout sessions. I was a speaker at one of the member breakfasts. I was a participant at the health summit. I had a booth there. And I did the HAYVN Hives, which is like a little breakout group. You meet with a small group of people and you hold each other accountable. You go over your goals, and it's just someone to hold you accountable. So I was with two fabulous women, Teresa and Kate Brooks. And it's interesting. It's sort of come full circle because now, so Teresa, she's been a client of mine. Kate, I'm a client of Kate's now. I just hired Kate to redo my bathroom and bedroom. So, I love her focus on sustainability in the interior design world. So it's kind of fun how HAYVN has been a source of not only professional development, but I've also gotten some personal leads out of this too.
Yeah. And what I love about that is your businesses and your, like, what you all are working on in the world are completely different, right? So it's not like you're sitting in a room of other people who are running med spas. It's kind of also learning and being accountable and growing through other people's experiences and not having somebody that's just like you talking to you about your business. Or to your point, like you can sort of say, this is the way I think I'm marketing. And somebody else could say, oh, interesting. As a potential client of yours, I would see it this way. Or have
Yeah,
you
and
thought
there's
about this?
a lot of like even though we're not in the same industry, there's a lot of transferable aspects to just being a female entrepreneur. And so I'm able to say, oh, okay, that marketing strategy is working for you. I'll try that kind of thing. So yeah, it's all
I
about ideas off of each other.
love it. Mary, I've loved learning about your business. I've loved learning about the change and also your journey. If people are interested in learning more or contacting you or learning more about Element Medical Aesthetics, what's the best way to connect with you or find you?
Yeah, so we can be found at elementct.com online, and we have booking online if you ever want to book a free consultation. Our Instagram is element.ct. You can call us 203-594-1907. So lots of different ways to get in touch. But I encourage people to follow us on Instagram because you can get a sense of the treatments that we do, see some of our before and afters. We have a really big focus on giving a very natural result. I think people sometimes are afraid of med spas, like giving them a result like they're going to look like Real Housewife or something like that. So I really encourage people to check that out. And then again, you can book from Instagram as well. So lots of ways to get in touch, free consultations. You don't have to be ready to even do a treatment. We can just talk skincare, really whatever. It's up to the client how they want to guide the session.
I love that. Thank you for making it so approachable and accessible. Mary, this has been a treat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This is fun.
And that is another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, give us a review, or share an episode with a friend.
Thanks for listening to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. HAYVN is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. HAYVN is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the HAYVN community online at hayvn.com. That's HAYVN.com. HAYVN Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.